Gather round, gang. Sunrise Parabellum. Communism. Is it rad or whack? Do drugs really make you cooler? And does this ceramic body armor match my crocodile skin loafers? All great questions, and all of them are things I've asked myself recently while playing just about the weirdest and most singularly beautiful game I've played in recent memory, Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium is a book disguised as a video game created by Elysium Studios, or more precisely, the mind of a demented Estonian communist novelist, Robert Kurvitz. The story of Disco Elysium's development is a long and confusing one, and you could probably make a whole video documentary about it, which people have. I won't bore you with the messy details, but suffice to say, it's a doozy. Essentially, after the release of Disco Elysium, Elysium Studios imploded. Kurvitz was fired for seemingly justified and unjustified reasons, along with many other lead developers and writers, while Elysium itself remains a weird, haunted shell of its former self, selling $200 plastic grocery bags. Yeah, I don't understand any of it either. What remains of the debacle, though, is the one thing they seemingly didn't screw up: Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium is a game that I've tried playing several times in the past. I usually get an hour or so into it before I decide to play something else instead, but that was a mistake. When I finally decided to put my nose to the grindstone and actually attempt reading things for once for the sake of the review, I found myself utterly unable to put the game down. Even now, I'm tempted to start another playthrough. Disco Elysium follows the adventures of a down-on-his-luck police detective who just so happens to have a bit of amnesia following a 3-day-long bender that has left him with the world's nastiest hangover. Just how bad is this amnesia? Well, you've forgotten your own name, job, and pretty much every detail about the world you inhabit. To make matters worse, you're also currently investigating a murder, which you obviously have no memory of. Not to mention the fact that Martinez, the town that you're currently in, really puts the A in ACAB. Surely, there is some kind of silver lining here, right? There must be something to look forward to, something to reassure you that you can still do this, that you're not completely and utterly screwed, right? Nope, the situation is just as bad as it sounds. The only small bit of comfort you might find is the knowledge that when you're at the bottom of the pit, the only way you can go is up. Or you could die, but that's still probably an improvement. It is on you to rediscover the basic facets of history, reality, and personal hygiene, all on your own, all while trying to solve a murder that the locals really don't seem to want you to solve. Never fear though, because you've got perhaps one of the single greatest characters ever put to pen by your side, Lieutenant Kim Kitsuragi. When I tell you that I would gladly and without hesitation lay my life down for this virtual combination of ones and zeros, I mean it. I love this man. He is mine, and you can't have him. Earlier, I called Disco Elysium a novel disguised as a video game, and that's because it is. About 90% of your time in Martinez will be spent talking to people, gathering evidence, interrogating witnesses, talking to corpses, all normal detective stuff. If you're not down for around 20 hours or so of pure yapping, this may not be the game for you. This is what originally turned me off the game. I like a good book as much as any guy, but when I read that this game has a word count higher than The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings combined, I shied away. I am now actually very angry at myself for doing so, because hot damn is this a good story. Once I gave it a chance, this game sucked me in like no other. The days I spent playing this game went by so quickly that I hardly remember them at all. The RPG elements of Disco Elysium are very, very light. You are given the choice of 4 different attributes, each corresponding to 6 different skills, and you can allocate points to them however you please. Your 24 different skills are pretty straightforward as well. You've got skills like logic, hand-eye coordination, endurance, electrochemistry, savoir-faire, shivers? I chose to focus on the psyche attribute with a specialization in the Inland Empire skill, because it told me that Inland Empire lets you talk to inanimate objects, and I thought that was funny.
Yes, your disgusting necktie agrees completely. Let's gossip.
You see, our boy here is not quite alone in his own mind. Each skill corresponds to a different aspect of his personality, who all have a voice of their own, and will use it very, very often.
Oh, high-grade narcotics, illegal firearms, stuff like that.
Time to arrest him. Relax. He's merely joking.
You may be questioning a possible witness when all of a sudden, Physical Instrument chimes in and lets you know that he's pretty sure we could take this adolescent child in a fight. During your investigation, you will often, in fact, pretty much always come across someone who doesn't want to give you the information that you need. It's times like these where you will encounter a skill check. This may mean persuading someone, convincing them that you're on their side, or just casually beating the shit out of them until they give you what you want. Think of these like an ability check in D&D. The higher the associated skill, the more likely you are to succeed. You might succeed a skill check in spectacular fashion, or fail it miserably. If a skill check looks particularly tough, remember that the clothes make the man. If even that isn't enough, there's always the option of taking some investigation-enhancing substances. Unless you're some kind of weenie, that is. Come on, you know you want it. Unless, of course, you don't want to be this kind of animal anymore. Maybe it's time you actually start taking care of yourself. Then again, taking care of yourself as a 40-something alcoholic is easier said than done. Just ask my dad. Look, guys, I've been resisting trying to make a my dad joke this whole video. It was bound to slip eventually. There are 2 health bars in this game. Your standard HP meter, which will go down if you do something too strenuous or get yourself hurt, and your morale meter, which will go down if you do something a bit too cringe. Undressed yourself in front of a random lady you're interviewing? Yeah, expect a morale loss for that. That's right, Disco Elysium is the first game that I know of where you can do something so cringe that you just fucking die. Also, don't forget that money is a very important and rare resource to a man such as yourself, which is why you should always be looking for money. I'm talking true Hobocop. Beg people, scrounge for empty bottles and sell them for a pittance. No change is chump change to a chump, and you're the biggest chump of all. Make deals with the local crime lords. Whatever you gotta do to get a little dough. That is, in essence, the main gameplay loop of Disco Elysium. It's a simple one, but once you get into the groove, you'll find it palpably addictive. This is all assisted by the intensely good writing that the game provides. The writing is something that exemplifies the feeling of the game as a whole. It's filled with sad, desperately lonely, yet unbelievably hilarious prose. I am unironically putting this video game up there with the likes of Blood Meridian and like Slaughterhouse 5. I don't know, those are like the 2 books I've actually read. Characters are so well written and somehow simultaneously both larger than life, yet completely believable. I just know that I could find these people in real life, and I'd hate them just as much. I do have to mention that Disco Elysium is a politics game. Being a man with no memory thrust into a very politically tense world must take a side. Will you be a raging communist? Or will you be a race science promoting fascist? Or will you be the worst thing of them all, a liberal? For the sake of my channel and in the name of complete neutrality, I decided to play a centrist, a radical centrist. At times, I was a communist, preaching for the downfall of the bourgeoisie. At other times, I was a fanatical fascist, extolling the virtues of the superior race, blaming all of the world's problems on immigrants and women. If you add up all of my beliefs, you will find that I sit perfectly in the middle on all things political. A true enlightened centrist. I sit upon this fence, perfectly balanced like that one scene in Karate Kid. I wield the 4 corners of this political compass like the avatar of bad opinions. I dare you to ask my stance on literally anything. How's that for neutrality? I'm putting that uncle of yours who only seems to show up to make Thanksgiving dinner as awkward as possible to shame. Because Disco Elysium is open world and very non-linear in nature, you can tackle the case in pretty much any way you see fit. Hell, you can beat the whole game without even looking at the dead body. You even get an achievement for that. But Kim doesn't like that, so I didn't do it. I'm not gonna lie to you, I save scummed before every decision in this game. Not because I wanted to go back and retry failed skill checks, but because I really didn't want to disappoint Kim. Combine all this with one of the most compelling stories I've ever read, and you've got a formula for one of my favorite games ever. I'm talking top 10 for sure. This game's soul is immense. The ending to this game, which I obviously won't spoil, comes so far out of left field, I don't think I could have predicted it if you gave me 1,000 years to try and come up with it. If you play this game at home, I dare you. Try and predict how this game ends. I guarantee that you won't. Disco Elysium is an ugly game, but in that cool Hunter S. Thompson-esque ugly is cool kind of way. If Hunter S. Thompson had lived for another 20 years and his addictions got really out of hand, and I vibe with that immensely. The game is designed in the fashion of an oil painting, and like, this shit's mesmerizing. I never thought I'd be so drawn in by a painting of literally the worst place on earth, but here we are. The setting is so dreary and cynical, but if you squint and cross your eyes and bash your head on the sidewalk enough times, it starts to look beautiful.
There he goes. One of God's own prototypes.
The environmental design tells you everything you need to know about Martinez. You're in a land ravaged by a war-long past that never really recovered. Exploring the world, you get this uneasy feeling that something very, very bad happened here a long time ago, and everyone but you seems to know precisely what it was. Over the course of the game, you'll slowly start to pick up pieces of information, not just about yourself, but also about the world and the city of Martinez. Everything is a jigsaw puzzle, and due to the non-linear format of the game, sometimes you won't ever find a certain piece. For me, it was the pail. Everybody I talked to kept bringing up the pail like it was common knowledge, but I never figured out what the hell the pail actually is. I still don't know. You know, I have never once in my life played a mid-Unity game. Every game made in Unity is either the most abysmally bad, slapped-together pile of shit, or the most beautiful, amazing game I've ever played. There's no in-between. Character designs are perfect. Look at this guy. Don't you want to just slap him in the face? And this guy, don't you want to just kiss him lovingly on the mouth? Take him away somewhere quiet, like a cabin by the lake, huddled together for warmth by the fire in those cold winter nights? Look at the main character. Now, I know you're resisting the urge to vomit profusely, but you must remember that Revachol is heavily based on France. So this guy is actually the pinnacle of male attractiveness. Body odor and alcoholism is like a fashion statement over there. I've never really understood ASMR. Every ASMR video I've ever watched has only made me feel intensely uncomfortable. The sensation of a stranger making mouth sounds or scratching their nails against my eardrums has never appealed to me. This all changed the moment I heard the narrator's voice in Disco Elysium. I could fall asleep to this guy talking about literally anything.
The boots look cleaner and cleaner. Those bits of human flesh are beginning to look cooked. You can smell it too. Just like beef stew.
Fuck! The rest of the voice cast, despite being pretty much entirely made up of people without a picture on IMDb, is insanely good. This is black magic we're looking at here, guys. Almost every voice actor in this cast has 0 other credits to their name, and this is some of the best voice acting I've ever heard, period. How does that even happen? Just give some of these lines a listen.
Nobody betrays your degeneracy. Helped anyone lately? Saved anyone lately? Murdered anyone lately?
Love is terror.
Yes, people get that you are the law. You really don't have to keep saying it.
Of course not. The only people who actually call themselves liberals are mouth-foaming reactionaries.
Capital has the ability to subsume all critiques into itself. Even those who would critique capital end up reinforcing it instead.
Oh yeah, and the soundtrack is obviously amazing too. That goes without saying, right? If I had to describe the soundtrack in one word, I would call it lonely. There's a sense of sadness in every tune, like something he's imagining in his head while walking around the city. It's a perfect embodiment of a sad old drunk's psyche, and just, God, it sounds so good. I want to say first off that while Disco Elysium is a great game, it definitely isn't for everyone. This is a words game. There's a lot of big words, even full sentences, and they're everywhere. I know it's hard to look away from the jangling set of keys for a few seconds and actually use your brain to comprehend things, but I still strongly recommend it. You're not going to be facing any great intense action or immediate gratification like you might find in other games, but sometimes a slow burn is better. Also, I would like to say that Disco Elysium isn't afraid to delve into some very, very dark topics, so if you're a bit squeamish about things that may sometimes come up in a police investigation, be a little wary. Firstly, the ending to this game is something that might divide people. I won't go into detail as it's something I think everyone should experience for themselves, but whether or not you actually like the ending is gonna depend on you. Personally, I thought it was great, but I have heard some people call it bad or a bit too out of left field to feel satisfying. I disagree, and I think that if you paid attention to the game throughout, it is a very satisfying end, but I can also see why some people didn't like it. And most importantly, take me to the dunes, because this game is buggy, especially on console. There was a point where, for whatever reason, the game would not let me save. I had about 3 hours of progress since my last save when I realized this, and while trying to troubleshoot the issue, the game crashed. I lost a good amount of progress, and being the calm and collected guy I am, said, fuck this game, I'm reviewing something else. But I did come back, and I'm glad I did. Just make sure to save often, and if that bug comes up, turn the game off and restart. Also, the PC version of Disco Elysium uses a point-and-click style of control, while on console you just directly move your character around. Because of this, navigating certain areas proved to be a bit of a challenge. On PC you can just click where you want to go, and the game finds a path for you. But on console, you have to actually find the path yourself, and there are certain areas in the game that really don't like this. I spent quite a lot of time fighting the controls, so if you do get this game on console, be aware of that. It's nothing crazy, but it was mildly annoying. Man, I really need to do a negative review sometime. I feel like these are getting too positive, but I can't help it if I have great taste. Disco Elysium is honest to God one of the best games I reviewed or just played, period. The writing is so solid, the characters are so entertaining and alive. There are moments that made me actually bust a gut laughing, and there are moments that brought a tear to my eye, and that's how, in my eyes anyway, art should be judged. I mean, fuck, I felt something playing this. I built an honest-to-God connection to this game. My vocabulary is irreversibly altered. 50% of my thoughts now are just about this middle-aged Asian twink that I am so hopelessly in love with. Every moment I spend awake is a moment spent wanting to play this game again. So, do I recommend it? Yeah, I sure do. Thank you for watching. Oh my god, what? Okay, I wasn't expecting that. 1,000 subs! God damn. I am not very good at saying thank you. It's one of my many weaknesses as a person, but seriously guys, thank you so much. I say it every time, and I mean it every time. It means the world to me. You guys are awesome, and I never would have made it this far with my channel without you guys. If you like this video and you want to see more, please consider subscribing and dropping a like. It validates my existence like you wouldn't believe. Also, consider joining our community Discord and dropping a howdy. We'd love to see you. Link will be in the description. Anyway, that's all for now, gang. One love, and one day, I will return to your side. See ya.
I would often go there to the tiny church there, the smallest church in Sansan, though it once was larger.